Welcome to step 2 on how to buy your first Airbnb property. In the first video, we went over the most important step, which is how to secure your financing and making sure you have the available capital necessary to buy that home. If you haven't checked that out yet, make sure to check out my IGTV and watch that video end to end. There was a lot of bombs in there that's gonna blow your mind on the available programs that you can utilize to buy your first Airbnb. So let's get right into step number 2. Step number 2 is to how to find your market. Now, when you're viewing a market, you need to look at 5 separate metrics to make sure that that market is a good market for Airbnb. Now, step number 1 is that you want to make sure that the market is a true vacation market. I will not buy a property in an Airbnb market if it is not being that one of the major supporting economic factors of that area is tourism. And the reason for that is if it's not tourism, you're going to run into a bunch of other issues. 1, like regulation coming down the line. And 2, you're going to get a lot of people that live in the area as locals that aren't going to support the Airbnb business. If you buy in a market that is a big driver of tourism, most people either know somebody that works in that market that directly supports their family through it, and 2, they already have dealt with a lot of the regulation items in other facilities. And you know people are going to continue to go to that area for the sole purpose of wanting to rent an Airbnb. These are markets, for an example, like Nashville, or markets like Orlando, or markets like Austin. Now, yes, of course, people go there for other reasons, but they have major tourists, entire societies within the city to help drive tourism to it. Now, you're also going to see this in areas of Hawaii, and you're also going to see this in major areas of state and national parks. So make sure you stay tuned and turn on that notification bell so you get notified when I drop my other videos. I'm doing a great video on the hot spots that I like for Airbnb markets to come. Now, step number 2 is the regulation. Now, I don't want no regulation. That's the worst thing that could happen. I actually want clear regulation. I want to know what the city and the county have towards Airbnb. Do they have a clear outline plan? With the short-term rentals, can they transfer from owner to owner? Or do you have to actually put the property in an LLC and sell the LLC as a whole? Probably got your mind thinking now, right? So you need to know that regulation, and you want to know that permitting process and that barrier of entry. Now, number 3 is the seasonality. What do I mean by seasonality? Meaning, does all the tourism happen in a very tight window? Like, for example, if you're looking at a mountain area, and that mountain area, let's see, for an example, is really catered to people like in Aspen, where it's skiing and snow season, which is 4 to 5 months out of the year. Well, that's great, but you better be able to cover your bills when you get all those 6 to 7 months of the year when your actual revenue drops by 70 to 80%. So you need to make sure that when you are analyzing the market, you understand the seasonality of it. Now, me personally, I like a seasonality where it has a very low difference. So example, if I'm going to look at buying a resort area, Airbnb, I want to make sure that they have big into mountain biking during the summer or big into lake like Tahoe, for an example. You got a booming winter, but you got a just as busy of a summer season, right? And that's very important that you look at the seasonality, and that if you are going into a market that has very heavy seasonality, that you plan from a revenue standpoint to be able to float that nut for those 7 or 8 months, or maybe you're not bringing in as much money, right? Now, number 4 that you need to be able to understand is you want to understand the investability of the market. What do I mean by that? The investability is hey, great, Brian, all these properties can generate $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year in Airbnb income, but oh man, I didn't realize it. It's $9 million to buy the home, right? It has a very low investability, meaning the average person, or even 99.9% of people, have no ability to be able to buy a home to enter the market because of the fact it has very low investability. So for me personally, if there's not a lot of people that have the ability to do Airbnb, it's not going to be as much of a priority, especially in really high-end areas. You're going to get very wealthy individuals that they don't want somebody renting an Airbnb next to their $15 million house. So when you're looking at certain areas, even in with, let's say, Miami can be very pro or very con on the Airbnb market based on the investability or the very hyper-local market. So understand the investability by making sure that there's properties in that market that you can actually purchase within your pre-approved amount to be able to bring into that market. And number 5 is revenue growth. What do I mean is the market stale? Is the market oversaturated? When you look at the revenue growth, do you see that every year that that particular market is doing more Airbnb income for a revenue perspective, or is it declining? Or is it staying the same, but the number of units is expanding? You need to understand, just like anything you invest in, what is the growth potential? What does the roadmap look like for those properties? You're probably thinking to yourself, Ryan, wow, those are 5 great things, but where the heck do I find this at? Well, guess what? I did an unbelievable video on the actual metrics and tools and websites I use to help overview these properties. The main one being AIRDNA. And if you haven't checked out that video, check out in my IGTV, the one I broke down on using the website airdna.io. So they've actually broken it down as easy as possible that you can buy the area that you're looking in for anywhere between about $39 and $99 and be able to actually evaluate it. And they make it as easy as breaking down these 5 metrics and then give it an overall rating from an F to an A+. So I hope this video as a second step really now broke down your halfway mark on buying your first Airbnb. Now we've broken down how to actually go about getting financing, what type of financing you can get, and the actual money you need to buy the home. And now we've gone through the 5 metrics of how to evaluate a market that you're looking at so that you can get a really good idea of if it's a good idea to invest in that market or not, and tools to use to actually supercharge your research so you don't have to do all the research on your own, but simply pay $30 to $100 to be able to look at all this information directly piped in, like using Mashvisor or airdna.com. You're not going to want to miss this 3rd video where I walk you through kind of those ladder laps to make sure we get you in the perfect Airbnb and you know everything from A to Z before you pull that trigger. So stay tuned.